Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, people, right? Your boy is sick again. I can't believe it. So, might be lower energy, but I'm going to try my best to get this information out there for you all. We have discussed, how things are likely to be a bloodbath this week, right? We talked about how I expected things to be going down below this area. We talked about how there's lots of liquidity building up over here in these price ranges, and we can see that I've been always talking about this 92 to 93K area, this specific candle. The reason why I always talked about this candle was because that was the candle that swept the last weekly lows. And my philosophy in these markets, and just knowing how the market makers are, they love sweeping liquidity because they don't want people to be winning, right? That is just the reality. They don't want people to be winning. So they sweep lows to knock people out from leverage trading. In the last day or so, we have had roughly $900 million swept. That is a real stat, ladies and gentlemen, right? That is something crazy. So you can tell there's lots and lots of money in these markets. And for me, right, I believe truly market makers are always going to make things very, very tricky before the final move happens, right? On a higher time frame bias, I still believe we will be getting past these areas. I still believe there will be an altcoin season. There's no reason for me not to believe it. Yes, things are different this time. Things are very, very different. We can see, even historically, right? We never really stayed on top of a high for a long time. We can see this was the 2017 high. And when we were here, we were roughly just a couple of weeks before we expanded, correct? This time around, we were at these highs, right? You can see we were consolidating over here for roughly 7 to 8 months before we expanded. So already things were different. Also, the ETF news and everything that came out, that also made things different. We can see, though, historically, every time the market looks like it's going to be going down and it's over, something gets swept, a reversal happens, right? It's very common for these markets to try to trick people. Boom, we go up, boom, sweep, we go up, boom, sweep, we go up, right? It is just a very, very common theme. So for me, I am not personally getting shaken out. I'm personally fine. I'm not worried about these markets in the way they are right now. Technically speaking, Bitcoin is doing really good. It's sitting around 100,000. It is the altcoins that are bleeding. We can see Bitcoin dominance is at 59.18%. We talked about how we broke structure, right? We broke structure and we were going to go to roughly the 60% and do the roughly to 62% over the next coming days and weeks. My higher time frame bias is still roughly that 69% area. So, it doesn't mean that altcoins still can't recover during this time, right? Whether it's the next few months going up, doesn't mean altcoins can't bounce even two times. It just means that I know Bitcoin is still the head of the snake. I mean, it's always going to be a head of snake, but Bitcoin dominance is still going to be very, very strong over the next little bit. And, that's why, even though people have specific dates where they think it's a good time to sell, at the end of the day, that's a lot of speculation. And even though it's good to know to have a certain time frame, what matters more is the analysis in the moment and looking at certain, break of structure, certain candles, and etc. Right? I still think we can technically have something happen during May time. It might be getting pushed to summer, right? Things are a little different, so the timing may be off. But for me, in terms of if altcoin season is still on the table, absolutely, absolutely is on the table. Even though I know right now, I'm saying this while it's red. I mean, that is literally my job, right? To tell you guys when things are happening, what's happening, why it's happening. It doesn't matter if it's a green day or a red day. I'm not going to be the type of person that says, "Oh my God, red day minus 20%, 30%, 15%, it's over. Oh, plus 15%." we're going to the moon, right? People that constantly flip flop, um, not very good. Bias does change, and it's okay to change bias, but anyone panicking right now in terms of YouTubers saying it's over, sell your coins, this and that, sell for a loss, very very dangerous, right? So you got to be careful who you're listening to. People in the private community already knew this was going to happen roughly 1 or 2 weeks ago. I marked up so many charts. I mark up roughly 20 charts every day or every second day, right? All the popular ones on the channel and ones people hold. So they were already expecting pullbacks, even something like our beloved render, right? I gave an example to them where I was just like, guys, there's no freaking way this holds, right? There's no way this trend line holds. We are expecting lower prices of roughly $5 to $4.50, right? And many, many coins were building up to be this way, right? Even one or two of the videos I posted on this channel, we were talking about how I expected things to pull back. Everything looks like it was just going to pull back. In terms of higher time frame market structure, I mean, some coins are left in their final like phases. Like there's not much imbalance to fill. There's not many order blocks to go in. Like this is kind of it, right? If we see on the weekly order block is at roughly $4.90. So that is the last thing. Because after that, of course, if we technically continued going down, then we would start really going back to hell, right? Then altcoin season would be officially over. The next thing we are going to be monitoring, right? This I'm going to use render as an example, but this applies for pretty much every chart. Once we bounce up from here and start going up on a higher time frame bias, I really, really want certain areas to be getting broken at this point. Because if we do something like this where we go up and kind of do this, break structure and like this, then it won't be looking good because then we will be consistently creating lower highs, right? If we do something like this, and then that would suggest potentially eventually a dump, of course, right? Which is something we don't want. Sometimes though, we do get something where it does end up going like this, and then there's a huge burst of movement. That also could play out. I really don't want that to happen. For me, if something like this happen, it means it would get stalled out for a very long time. And I know not only myself, but a lot of you guys are looking to cash out sometime in 2025. Some people thought end of 2025, some people thought, May, April. For me, if we get cash out over the next 6 months for the first pump, that would be like very ideal and I'll be 10 out of 10 happy. If I have to wait a little longer, sure, it's fine. But in general, 2025 is the year I want to see these nice pumps start happening. So we'll continue to monitor all the crypto coins, right? One final thing before I end this video, right? We can see Bitcoin, sorry, not Bitcoin, all others dominance is at a very key area. Even though things are dumping heavily, it's still holding a very, very important area. So we kind of want to see this bounce off this trend line because if we don't, then we could go all the way to 7.82% or somewhere down below 7%. And if that were to happen, that means it would be a really, really bad, you know, um, really bad for altcoins. Like we would really bleed out probably another 50 to 60% from the current prices. So we'll continue to monitor things. We will see how things go. Personally, I am not scared. I am not worried. Bigger picture is still green.